Julie here with siriustalesmoon. So we are continuing with green flags for men. And it stopped right when I talked about looks and how looks, of course, there are people that suffered, for example, in Bedouin tribes, um, when men are violent towards women, sometimes they drew um, vinegar, types of vinegar, not apple cider vinegar, but vinegar on the face because they wanted to harm a woman's looks. And so everything has its context, okay? Um, and in general, yes, this shows you just how literally toxic um, can these type of Nazi societies be. Nazis does not
The
mean
dual
Irish.
citizenship crackdown.
Okay, even Adolf Hitler was not looking to Irish. Nazis is ideology. And this is actually, Dr. Professor Chiang talks about that very ideology. And does a wonderful job describing how do they create this trauma-based cohesion. This is why I was surprised to talk about how uneducated women collapse society. But again, I have to take into account he's academic. I don't know if he was tortured or not tortured, so I have to take into account that he was tortured um, while presenting this because he did go into the nitty-gritty of how society is basically broken into trauma bonds. So again, I always keep a level of credit when people, even if I disagree with people, because I know myself as an academic what I went through, and I know, unfortunately, what they do to people, especially people that shed light on this type of dynamics. So, green flags for men, part one. Um, green flags, green flags, men, green flags, men. Part one for women and men who like men. So whichever gender who likes men. Um, and here, yes, I do. Um, how should I say that? I know that a lot of gender non-conforming was created by ritual abuse. So was a lot of cases where people have sex without love. And big shout out to Elijah for talking about that. But basically, that they were raped. And I believe that containing possibility someone is either genuinely gay or through gay relations they learn the needs that can be met. And I'm not to decide for what gender someone is. It's something that only a person can sovereignly do themselves. So I address all possibilities. Okay. Um, and again, I could be wrong. It can be that but we'll find out that with no trauma, there is no gender blender. I don't know if it's true, but I'm gonna keep it at that. Um, yes. Okay. And this is going premiere. Of course, all rights reserved. And of course, another thing important is yes, a man that honors your energy. Not a man tries to interfere or to, not a hater. Now, And beauty in astrology is also Venus. And this is why in man's chart, okay, whether he's going for a man who is looking for a man whose gender expression is more feminine, okay, a trans woman or woman, Venus would represent a lot of the partner. Also, Sun and Moon, the entire chart to be very particular, and asteroids. But Venus does not just represent partner, but also values. And this is why looks can be indicator. If they don't like how you look, and I say don't like how you look, okay? If somebody looks at you and they don't like it, and you can be very beautiful, it means that there's incompatibility between your values. Yes, either they have to go through crisis with themselves around things like that, and it's theirs. But again, we're not going for the man who has to go with crisis with themselves. They're not for relationship. Maybe they can be in future time with future partners. But this is where if somebody doesn't like how you look, it's Venus is not compatible. It means you will probably not agree on values. It means that, okay, and they could have a lot of emotions towards you. But if they don't like how you look in a way that it really bothers them, it means that your values, their values, not compatible. And something as simple as appearance can be denoting of that. Because it will come up as a value crisis. And you know what? I think is also relevant for friends. Because we think, oh, if they don't like so much how I look, but we get along as friends, then okay, we're not sleeping together, not my husband, they're not. But I noticed that if they have big problem with how I look, or yes, or is something that sits in them and they don't like how I look, it means that also as friends you're not compatible because Venus is values. And women, also if you don't like so much how man is looking, okay, well, Venus doesn't necessarily represent your partner unless you are Aries or Scorpio ascendant, that Venus would be ruling 7th house. You should check if it only is the look, or do your values are your values compatible, whether it's business partner, whether it's friend. Now it's not about what surely only beautiful. I'm not talking about only beautiful people. There's some people that I would find very beautiful, and other people would say, what do you find in this? And then there's something that and then again it has to be mutual. So and then there's some people, yes, and this is where we have to be honest with ourselves because it's going to come up as a value issue. Venus, beauty, is also value. And if we're not compatible in value, it means both as business partners, as friends, and so on and so forth. And this is why we have people like Yasmin coming from a country like Iran, going into matriarchy, talking about how beauty, and she's not talking about the plastic things. And again, I'm not against that. The people with, let's say, Venus sextile or trine Pluto in their chart, if all is well aspected, they could have surgeries to change their beauty that could be very successful. Okay, again, each case is so varied. So, for example, I have Venus hard aspect to Pluto. For me, beauty procedures is off the limits. It's not at all. In fact, one time I did a beauty procedure for my face and my skin, and there was some indiscrepancy, and I ran into debt. And later, because of this debt, I would get financing for my degree. So, and Pluto is in my ninth house. Okay, so think about this as a crisis situation. And it's one time I tried to do something that is, I don't know, to smoothen my skin. Could have done better diet than and use essential oils. The scars would go away, but I didn't know that. And then it was a big crisis. Again, with Venus sextile trine Pluto, it could have been successful, and then I don't know, would make a bigger money. And by the way, when I say make a bigger money following looks, I don't mean bigger money in business to do with beauty. Okay, we're not trafficking mode in this channel. And this is why people like Yasmin talk about how beauty can be a boundary in the face of predatory people. Because it is value. As astrology, she talks about Eros. Eros is eroticism, but beauty is also value. And when we tend to that, we show basically, we demonstrate. Yes, it's one of the ways to demonstrate with our appearance what a value is. And again, it's not about somebody, how should I say, it's not about whether you wear, again, she's coming from Iran. So to wear a clothes that are complementary to her body, that are not Mama Taliban, okay, that would be considered not classy, that is actually a boundary to men who equate Mama Taliban with values. And this also shifted my perspective because I come from society where it's not like that so much, and actually we go against if woman is attacked because of what she's wearing or something like that. But this is how what she's wearing is actually a boundary to predator. She's saying, these are my values. You want a woman traditional wearing a tent? Go with women traditional wearing a tent. These women may have been trafficked. Then you run the risk that you will be a criminal against humanity because you wanted a woman wearing a tent. I'm not here to judge your values, just understand what they represent. You know, for man, for woman to orgasm, okay, man needs to be able to not hold it just in terms of, oh, be able to function. With that, people can find, you know, there are sex toys, there are other things, but to hold his energy in relaxed arousal, to allow her to orgasm. And then for the same with the man. A man that says he cannot hold that energy, whether he is at work, is showing he's not good businessman. He cannot honor the eroticism that is also associated with wealth and value, and he cannot hold himself together, respecting the yes, no, and maybe. He's showing he's not doing business. I don't know what he's doing, maybe extortion cults, maybe Epstein ring, maybe crimes against humanity. And to be able to be at that, people need to meet their non-erotic needs adaptively, and allow for others to meet non-erotic needs adaptively. Now, this is also showing how Venus could create green flags for men, and this is true regardless if you're woman seeking men or man seeking men. Okay, not to be raped as a man is also important, whether you're in gay relationship or straight relationship. This is also pertaining, bless you, my mom sneezed. Now it's a tautology. This is also pertains to finances. It's not that men need to provide for women finances. It's that men need to provide a world where a woman can provide for herself as well as enjoy generosity. And a lot of these women, they actually buy vacations for men as well. A lot of Libra placements, a lot of them, they make good money, and they also share it with partner. They would give him gifts and so on, but he has to be a man, not someone who would be feeling emasculated by that. And one of the sexiest things is to go to a men's shop, men gift shop, and find all the nice things. There is an eroticism feeling even when going to make that purchase. Okay, so, but a man has to be in position with himself, where if there is economy that makes it difficult for women to be woman, to connect with the sensuality, to relax into a man, then he's not just sitting idle and letting that be. Venus also rules clothes, so Venus in man chart also rules of what he wears. Okay? I had even friends next to me, and I accepted them, but as they are. I never tried to change their style or anything like that. Then they grew, got with bigger money and so on and so forth. They themselves suddenly began to buy clothes, very nice clothes. I said, wow. But they had to spiritually. If they go in spiritually, that doesn't allow for women to be spiritual, to be intelligent, then and they're afraid of that. It's not. Okay. Now, Venus in man chart can also be what he like woman to wear, which is again, if it's something that is in great discrepancy, then it means that there is lack of compatibility also in the values. Okay, if he likes a woman to wear a tent because he wants her to be with the best lingerie and so on and so on, but only for him, usually these are human traffickers. Okay, but let's say not to go extreme to a tent, but he likes her to be, I don't know, in business attire, but only with him with the lingerie and so on and so forth. Okay, fantastic. What about a woman who's a bit more relaxed into the situation where she wants to be able to portray herself also when she's not in bed with her man? Okay, that can create a certain discrepancy. Whether they can bridge that discrepancy or not, then they can meet different partners. But that discrepancy can come even, let's say, to business. Maybe this man wants to be the business partner, and for her to have no other business partners, no new initiatives, no. Okay? But for other women, it's like, well, if I'm right now, let's say, when I was in 2017 writing a satire, then basically it was me and my friends sitting in a restaurant, and there were the napkins, and we began to write funny stuff. And I said, wait a second, in satire, I can express certain things and that I cannot just say. And I wrote satire. Okay? But for, let's say, I don't know, there was once a screenwriter that wanted me to write the voice of a woman. And it prompted my thinking to say, I need to understand who am I as a woman. Or I tend to, yes, let's say, what astrology of relations, or charts of people, let's say, after my Pluto square was charts of politicians. And these are the people that are big names right now. And I would need next to me a person that knows that that the settings there is not opportunity. So each and every one of those fields would sometimes require different understandings. For example, when I delved into true crime, I did not know anything about extortion calls. And then there was this person came in energy, and they saw that with me, the more they'll try to put limit to my expression, the more I express myself. And then they went way on that. But I said, what? We're doing the same thing. I said, yeah, we're doing the same thing. But they showed me what other things it entails. And I was like, oh, okay, I got it. Okay, I got it. And in that notion, okay, this person had this orientation where they came from within this field. They knew the other things that I would have no way knowing. Now, here is the thing. When it's outer planets and inner planets in astrology, we'd usually see something political, sociological, and now we have a lot of those relations. For example, you could be good friend with a person for so and so years. And then comes a time where people try to make the country more religious. Or you're an astrologer. And then the discrepancies begin to show up. By the way, with Saturn Venus, if people are just friends and not having expectations to date, so they don't talk about these values, then that can happen. Okay, Saturn is something that takes a delay, comes a Saturn transit, and then we see the values are not at all the same. And it affects even friendship. So Pluto in relations to Venus and or also to Jupiter in more challenging aspects can be crisis around belief systems. Or if this Pluto in somebody's ninth house. For example, I have Pluto in ninth house, opposing ruler of seventh and fourth. So it would have to come from the other person to bring it, to refine it into a good synastry. Now, if you are in a situation where you say, oh, there's no good man, it's not always shadow work. It's sometimes there's Nazi agenda. There can be masses upon masses of graves and orphans. Of course, love that is actually loving sustained world wars. And this is just why there are social engineering campaigns to try to keep people from having love that is actually loving, to keep people from healing. Yes, how should I say that? In Hebrew, there is a sentence in the Bible that says, "Zar'acha imachem me'adama," which is basically denoting of entire lineages that are being erased. This is because they don't have love that is actually loving, and eventually it makes societies, lineages go extinct, and bloodlines go extinct. In fact, M. Spiracy has lovely teachings about the various dragons. And she talks about the blood. Of course, her blood is very mixed. But she basically talks about remembering. And each one of the dragon had in their own way a way of standing up to the truth in the face of something that is trying to corrupt the truth. Sometimes even man that awakens the dragon. Okay, for example, had energy, colleague of mine, married person, has family, okay, but they awakened me to the silver dragon. And I saw dragon. I said, I need to learn what is these dragons. And then to the red dragon. And I have Rao in the 12th house, and they have Rao in my 7th house. And so they identified, and they have moon next to my Rahu. So they identified what type of dragon nodes I am. And then I was even shown in the comments that the nakshatra has to do with the silver dragon and what the red dragon. And of course, we're a little bit of both, all of us. A little bit of all of us. It's a couple of things. And you can watch M. Spiracy's own gnosis or teachings about that. Wait, no. Now, in this time where there are a lot of AI experiments that are also technology interface experiments, a part of the things that we need is the technology that refines and allows our nervous system to be green flag. And this is why when there are technologies and societies and even innovation, for example, Israel is known as a startup nation, but they encourage too much opportunism. Opportunism, I'm all in favor of opportunism as long as it is within the scope and is beneficial to humanity. And then people think they're gonna make big money, and they go into one of the Silicon Valley cults. They make big money, but then they have to suffer the consequences of their technology and weapon development, which is used, as we see in the United States and also in other places, against civilians. Of course, a man that does nothing about that or that thinks to profit off of that is not a man a woman can relax into. It's also not a man whose legacy is one that is worth continuation. Or at least he should not force this continuation on women. Now we have Venus opposing Jupiter, and this is exactly where we tackle these or confront these traditional notions of women and femininity and the practical reality check on beliefs, even though some of these beliefs could have been considered exalted. The moon in Libra is in the decan of Libra. That's to do also with touch. And again, a man touch has to honor the eroticism, honor the non-eroticism. If you cannot honor a woman, don't touch her. This all has to do with the addiction-based wealth. Okay, people that make wealth, and Neptune can be big wealth, but if they make wealth based on getting people addicted to something, and if they build nations based on that, of course these nations are set to collapse. And societies based on that, bless you, of course, societies are based to collapse. It needs no explanation. I think it's as clear as gas. You see a lot of the gas, energy based, is in interface with people that money launder in order to invest in gas. And they money launder on trafficking. It's okay, we are human beings here. I know in certain Eastern cultures, burp or gas after meal is solar plexus alignment. So it usually means the meal was good because it aligns our solar plexus, which is the I am, and it is a part of what we're talking about, leading me to the next conjunction, which is Mars and the Sun. You see that I was as position as teacher. Wait. Mars and yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you. It's okay. We're human, it's okay. Beyonce once said the weirdest thing that happened to her on show that she had a bubble, which on the nose, because you don't have tissues when you perform 2 hours and so on and so forth. Now it's good time to talk about Venus opposing Jupiter, with the moon still in Hasta Nakshatra, and Mars and Sun. That Mars is exalted 19 degrees, that are also opposing Jupiter. Okay, so we're gonna have a lot of these spiritual beliefs, philosophies based collisions. Venus is also ruling over Uranus and the moon at this time. Pluto has ingressed to the third degree. Pluto has ingressed to the third degree of Aquarius. And again, Pluto third degree, degree of Mercury, so communication, technology, science as well. Okay, skill. Mercury 12 degrees Capricorn, Saturn 26 degrees Pisces. We have effectively, successfully went through the triple conjunction in Capricorn days. But we're aligning to the T-square with Chiron and Jupiter. And the moon will perfect this T-square later, very likely later today or early tomorrow, when it's going to oppose Chiron from 22 degrees Libra. They're going to have in a magic square. Now, of course, we are having philosophical, beliefs-based collisions, because while Jupiter is giving us eureka after eureka regarding our relational patterns and beliefs. For example, if person is coming from a world where Mary Magdalene was whore and Lilith was demon, and Beta per se actually wanted sex, and her hair was snakes because she wanted, I'm sorry, sex too much, he cannot be good lover. And if he has phases where he's good lover, it would always be with him being incubus or succubus. He cannot hold a relationship to stand the test of time in a way that is not built on double life, secrets, something that undermines the foundation of everything. I'm talking about essence. Unless this place of religion doesn't mean a lot to him. So when he encounters, let's say, the female spirituality, he's not flabbergasted. He doesn't have this primordial fears of the feminine. This is a eureka of Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is beliefs and spirituality, and the moon is relational patterns. This is also why we run into the notion that women's education affecting fertility is causing destruction rather than more safe relation-based societies. This is also when there is a crisis between values and beliefs. Okay, for example, women can have good values and say, oh, there's no good man. Well, there's no good man because if society grew up in a way where is trauma bond-based relations and spirituality that encourages those trauma bond-based relations because they make money based off of trafficking children and women and people and making people addicted to unhealthy relations and unhealthy spirituality in the sense that that spirituality enables the unhealthy relations. For example, a lot of the twin flame paradigm was a paradigm of enabling, and actually Jewel from Truth in Aspect Astrology dealt with the reality check on what people call twin flames. And when I began to look at outer planets and inner planets, I was very much inspired by her teachings, which I gave all the time. I would say, go to Jewel. If you need a reading, go to Jewel. That's why I said that, because it's not because she's a psychologist, but because she gave us an astrological reality check where Neptune, Pluto hard aspects and even the easy aspects can be where people feel they're twin flames and they're not. With Uranus is usually less destructive. For example, if they both got divorced and think they're twin flames, they probably needed to get divorced. Okay? But with Pluto Neptune, it can be more challenging because a lot of the unhealthy and even trafficking scams are basically enabled by the so-called twin flame belief that one should sustain an unhealthy relation or unhealthy longing for relation. A better way to work with Pluto and Neptune is Neptune being the void that can denote of miraculous healing, and we can observe what am I receiving here and absorb what I'm receiving here. Even people that were in risk of trafficking, when they absorb what they're receiving but set boundaries, they said, no, a love that's actually loving has to be consistent. Talking what they're receiving that is benefic. And the longing, what is the longing? What is missing? Because that finds a way to manifest, and then we check, is it manifesting adaptively? And with Pluto, is about standing in our power. Can I relax into this man, or do I constantly have to stand in my power in the face of this man? If I constantly have to stand in my power in the face of my man, then I cannot relax into him. I cannot orgasm. Now, people that grew up on trauma-based society, they grew up on orgasm that is misplaced arousal and has way more dopamine than oxytocin, vasopressin, and even if it has the other two, soon enough, they cannot sustain the relation because they try to take it and distort and corrupt and siphon the energy. And then the body itself says, okay, it's not. And those things are dependent on people being addicted to relationships, addicted to sexuality, and sometimes they try to deprive people and isolate them from relationships so that they'll go with it. And then what happens? People set even more boundaries. And I say, oh, if this person, let's say, is in the whiff, that don't bring the water. If they had to go through inauguration that was made of them being ritually abused and having to ritual abuse, then how can they be good prime minister? It is harming their competence because they don't have it in them to be competent, but because they turn being competent into acting in a way that undermines what the self and the other. This is what those rituals do. The awareness about this. And this is why knowing, okay, what is love that's actually loving? It's all the things I said. And understanding that woman cannot commit to a man she cannot relax into. And it's not about blame and shame. You see, if man is not ready for a relationship, and let's say, I don't know, has sex with woman and the society forced them to get married. He's not really ready for a relationship. She can't complain about him cheating when he becomes a more mature and meets women that he's actually compatible with. Same as with women. If we did not have yes, no, and maybe honored, and society that allows for women to be women in all that they are, intellectual, to travel, to live, to be connected with the feminine, to be connected with the masculine or whatnot, okay? To be mother, to be not mother. If we haven't allowed for that in society, we can't complain about women cheating or women being manipulative or even worse things. Artificial morals do not replace actual society. What is artificial morals? When woman is raped, and then people expect things of this woman. Oh, she's not a good one. Did she get to be a child before you talk about what a mother she is? Now, some of it could say in a society that allows for people to grow, one could talk about shadow work. And shadow work is important. Okay? It's not just society changing. It's we changing and say, okay, it's not why there's no good men, it's that they are entrenched in those type of secret society based on trauma bonds, and they have to betray their daughters, their sons, the women, their mothers, their fathers. And if nations are built on that, then this is why the policies are shaped to preserve perpetual war. Now, who benefits from that? Literally no one. The way Anya Wick says, that it was done to them, so they do it to others. They think, one of the Eurekas was man in energy came to me, and he showed me several things. One of them was how they harm, the genitals of people, and then they called them clone. They ran into the emoji clone. Another was, but how those, first of all, they're underground. They are, for example, even better per se, there are these monasteries where they ritually sacrifice, but they're underground. And another was with how those practices are also indigenous. And also, one very dark thing she showed me was how people come to harm, because the minute I ran into this energy, was a lot of pressure for me to communicate with this person. And I said, why? Why? And they were targeted and I was targeted at the time. And so I was shown things he did to women. Okay? Just and then one of the things that he showed me was how come person comes to desire to do that to women. Now, this is showing us that shadow work alone is not suffice. Society also has to change. And also, shadow work is not something is not needed. If it sounds like it's impossible to be a man or woman in these times, it is by design. And yet we cannot give up at these standards and call it relationship, let alone commitment. And we cannot gaslight one another about these things. If the people that develop the biggest and most advanced technologies, which are security and surveillance technologies, are carrying beliefs that are not supportive of, that they come from those lack of cohesion societies, as Dr. Shi Yang said. So they can have deep bonds, but they're trauma bonds. And even between them, there would always be something that undermines the very relationships that they're in, even as gay men. Which is how these standards of love that is actually loving, whether we're man or woman, are so important. And the entire world need to accommodate for love that is actually loving. If it doesn't, then societies collapse. It's not just lack of fertility that collapses societies, but also excess. And excess that is done not because people have a lot of children, because, I don't know, the sex is so good and they have such good experience being parents and the children enjoy and they have enough money. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay? I'm talking about the times where it's not the desired situation, and yet people do have. I know Bedouin women that had difficulty relating to their child because it was not born from consent. They were forced to become parents, and they tried what the best for the child, but they said, "I'm so sorry for this child that was born into this world where it doesn't have a mother that can mother. And no matter what I do, I know that I'm not, because of the way in which she was forced to have children. She said, I was not a person supposed to have children. I was supposed to study. I was supposed to, maybe there are child needs of her that were not met and need to be met adaptively before she can mother. And then the child is there. She cares for the well-being of the child, and she's knowing she's not able to mother because she's not ready to mother. And these children later they go to school. One of the enterprises I did with one person that came to me, and he was Arabic from the north to come to teach in Bedouin schools. He was the teacher that does not hit. He didn't want to hit the students, so he came to me to learn skills. And I was just English teacher. So I combined the things I knew from Charlie on Command, shout out to Charlie on Command, Charisma on Command, Charlie from Charisma on Command, and gamification. And we comprised something within 3 meetings in segments of time, and he applied them, and he became the favorite English teacher. We made of his not being, of him being the teacher that doesn't hit the children at school, we made that a value. So it was not as him being soft, but that this is a value for him. He said, if you want a teacher that hits, there will be other teachers. But when the minute that became a value, and notice how Venus values, showing him not as the soft man, but as the man who has standards. And this is one of the standards. And then we used gamification to have the energy released from the children, not just sit and study, but they play do games of physical activity and so on and so forth. So they're actually happy to study, and it was the language English. So if you see Bedouins should be now, they were in third grade, they were what, 9, 10, they should be around 20 now. So if you see Bedouins at age 20 speak English fluently, it's probably because of this enterprise where I started the mastermind, and then he applied it and refined it with his students. But up until then, all the teachers would beat the students. So here we talk about green flags because person sees something wrong in society and does something about this. It's not I'll be the beaten man who makes his wife wear a tent, and if she assaulted, blaming her, because everybody does that and thinking that that's tradition. It's not even what their scriptures say. And of course, Venus is also speech. If a woman doesn't get the freedom of speech, if the woman doesn't get to express herself, how will she relax into a man? Now, the women, even that block women from being able to express themselves, how will they not be assassinated and decapitated? The women and the men.